right, folks, we are now ready to go. I apologize for my tardiness, but we are ready to call our meeting to order. This is a regularly announced and scheduled Greer City Council meeting called and convened this evening, April 9th, 2019. Having called the meeting to order, I'm going to ask Councilmember Jay Airwood if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Following that, he'll give an invocation for our council.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let me pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for the rain and the sunshine that you sent. I thank you for this council and you allowing us to help lead your city. You blessed our city with many things. Help us as a council to be your stewards and do the very best that we can with all that you've given us. And may folks, when they see and they come to Greer or our residents, I pray, Lord, that they will know that you have blessed us and that we do our very best to make the most of those blessings. And that also, Lord, that as you have commanded, that they will know that we try to love one another. Forgive me of my sins. In Jesus' holy name I pray. Amen.
Ms. Duncan, anyone to appear in public forum this evening?
No, sir.
With that, council, we'll move to the minutes of our council meeting from March 26. You have those minutes contained in your packet. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any items of note for the clerk this evening? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, we have the opportunity once again to do some special recognitions. This is a time that we set aside to recognize those folks who have reached milestones in their service to the city. This is an important part of our agenda, is to be able to recognize those folks and give them special recognition for the part that they play in helping us fulfill our mission for the city, and to carry that out through the direction of our administration and others. And so with that, I am going to move to the front and ask the administrator if he would please to join me for our employee recognitions. And you're going to have to help me in more ways than one here. I've left my list somewhere. So, Anna Barnett. Anna has served with us 5 years in the... Which department do you work for, Anna? Is the chief back there? Is he? I'm available for detective duty if you just something to stay track.
That's a good one.
Call me and I'll be glad to assist if I can. There's my cheat sheet. Thank you, Anna. James Pruitt has served in the Public Services Department for 5 years. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks. Red Watson has served in the Parks and Recreation Department for 20 years. Really, 20 years?
I'll be giving you 10.
Yeah, there were some of us on council that remember when he was running around here. Jeff Smith's been with the police department for 25 years. Appreciate your service. And Tammy Duncan has served with the administration for a long time.
She's experienced many of our departments.
And we do appreciate the service of each and every one of these. This resolution says, whereas these employees have served in a distinguished and professional manner, now be it therefore resolved that the City Council of the City of Greer, South Carolina, in a meeting duly assembled, wishes to officially recognize and commend these employees for their distinguished and dedicated service for which they have performed. And be it further resolved that the City of Greer hereby rewards these dedicated employees with a certificate of appreciation and an administrative day off with pay, approved this 9th day of April 2019. Join me in a round of applause. Is Brian Wilson with us? There he is. Okay. Brian, sorry. And all this, we need to talk to you after, I need somebody to lay down. All right, let's do this one more time. Let's recognize these faithful employees.
Recognize the name on there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff to carry, especially when it's hot. Yeah, we got good nicknames. Maybe we should.
Yeah. Well, after that rather auspicious start, we will try and get back on track. And we'll ask Mr. Skipper Burns if he'll help us with that. Mr. Burns is the Director of Public Services and is going to bring us his monthly report. As much as it pains me to say, we will be celebrating with him a retirement this summer. And Skipper, we look forward to your report this year, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, Council, appreciate the opportunity for letting me spend the next 75 minutes or so.
Oh, everybody's
No, really, I do appreciate this opportunity. We start out with our garbage, which you know we run a contract service, so this is just my way more than anything to keep up with our tonnage for our landfill bills. All these numbers you see stay close to the same. The recycle center to curbside, that is running just about nip and tuck from month to month, and that's the last 3 months of that information there. We'll move on to our maintenance shop, our vehicle maintenance. You see the largest number of our work is what we call repairs, and that can be anything from small repairs, some light bulbs, to a plug in a tire on a lawnmower. That is also some of our more intense work where we have to replace water pumps and that kind of stuff. You see we've done 106 calls on that last month. Tire repair, you see, is that is anything we've had to replace, repair. We don't really repair very many. Then the tire rotation and that kind of stuff. Brakes, rotors, turn, that kind of work. That's, we go through brakes a little bit quicker on some of our vehicles than on others. And then road calls, you see, is a very small amount. That's all we have, like 5 or so a month. We'll move on to the garbage, the cart delivery. This is an effort basically between us and ACE. Sometimes I feel like I can get to them a little quicker than they can, and so we try to help out with that to keep the numbers down. New home carts this time were 30 recycle bins, and most of these either go to the new homes or a resident calls and requests. We've done 40 replacement carts. We try to get about 15 years out of a cart, but then when that life expectancy of that cart's gone, I have to replace it with new ones, and so that number's 20. And then carts repaired, that's anything that we've had to repair, either wheels or lids or anything like that. We'll move on to our, what I call our street crew, the public service crew. We've done some reconstruction on a ditch line down on Douglas Street. We had a ditch that had just simply silted in, and water was running across the road and flooding another property owner. So we had to clean that out, reconstruct that ditch line. The Bible Brook Road community had a cleanup day back in the month of March, and they left a few of the bulk items that they really couldn't handle, and then asked us if we would get them. So we sent a truck and picked up all of that. Then you see the sidewalk. We replaced 150 foot out on the Westfield Avenue. There again, our street and storm drain crew, we've rebuilt some curb lines and boxes out on Wilson and Fifth. Rebuilt some curb line over on Parker and Stewart. Repaired storm boxes and poured new handicap ramp at Trade and Marchant. Rebuilt catch basin and repaired storm drains lines in the Veterans Park. Then, as you know, this is our time of year that we're constantly cutting back and bush hogging and trimming our own properties and this kind of stuff. And that's just a list of some of the areas through there we have done. Street sweeper, that's another one we try to run on a daily basis, but weather, sometimes it's just not feasible for us to run that, so we've only run that 15 days last month. And of course, we are starting our weed spray and weed control, and I won't read all of those to you, but that's some of the areas that we've been in there. As you know, we're always trying to keep up with our potholes on our city streets for our residents, so that they're maybe not as much damage and everything to automobiles. We've already repaired 40 of those. Signs and replacement. There again, I track this every year. I show it to you in my annual report. 11 locations, and that's just some of the locations right there. Custodian and maintenance staff, there that the custodians are responsible for cleaning city buildings, and they stay on that. And then our maintenance staff, this is a list of some of the different things from replacing commodes and jails to adding washer and dryer hookups that he's had to have overseen or do himself. And then also I will remind everyone that the last Saturday of the month of April is our spring cleanup. That'll be April 27th. We will be at the 315 Baltimore Street Recycle Center location. It'll be an 8 to 1 event. We'll pretty well the same format as we've done in the past several years. We will have the shred truck. We will take the e-waste. We will take construction, building materials, that type of stuff. We'll take furniture. We will also have a prescription drug take back. We'll have the police department there to help us with that. And then we will have our paint and pesticides, insecticides, all of our chemicals and everything. So I encourage each of you to come out and visit us. Bring a load. And that's about all I have. If I have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Council?
Skipper, I saw we did a little road maintenance on one or two state roads. Do they give us any kind of help when we do that, or we just do it because we have to? I think East Poinsett was the one that just caught my eye. I believe it.
We may have patched a pothole there, but we normally stay out of anything DOT. I'm trying to find exactly what you're talking about.
It was under the pothole repair?
Yeah, including East Poinsett. East Poinsett and Cannon, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Are they pretty good when you call them about coming out to make patches?
They have, they've been behind like everyone else for the rain period, and there was several potholes in some of the state roads that we actually called 2, 3, 4 times. But then they did come, and I knew they were behind. Anything else?
Others? Skipper, I've been wanting to ask you, are you sure you really want to retire?
It's very sweet, but I think it's time to try it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. And please convey to your crews and folks that work there with you and the Public Services Department how much we appreciate the job that y'all do. Council departmental reports are available if you need more information from any of our department heads. They'll be glad to assist you, or the administrator will be as well, too. In regards to presentations, Caroline Robertson is with us this evening. She is the Executive Director of Greer Relief and is bringing her annual report. So, Ms. Robertson, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, members of Council, and City Administration for allowing me time here today to present our neighborhood in review. And thank you to the City of Greer for your part in giving hope to our community of neighbors by supporting the mission and program of Greer Relief. I want to start today a little different with a service survey. So I'm going to pass this out to the council members. We'll just pass this down. Don't worry, I won't take it up and tabulate your answers. Just read over the options and choose what services you believe take place at the J. Burns Smith Center at 202 Victoria Street in downtown Greer. And while you're working on that, I do want to recognize a few folks special to me in Greer Relief that are here with me tonight. A few of our board members are here tonight. Mark Essex, he is our president-elect. Pam Fortner, Angie Karcher, John Manshore, Cal Mensing, our current president, and Lydia Shirley. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Yeah, it's a long list. Okay.
That's a trick survey? I think this
No response. So, what do you do when you see a neighbor in need? Greer Relief was founded in 1936 by neighbors who saw neighbors freezing and starving. The combined vision and mission of Greer Relief is to transform neighbors in need to neighbors who thrive by providing services to eliminate poverty and help neighbors overcome barriers for success. Already this year in 2019, we have assisted 1,376 of our neighbors. We help by giving a hand up. Far too many people struggle to meet their basic needs. The process of getting medical assistance, buying food, making ends meet, and even just knowing where to go for help can be confusing, intimidating, time-consuming, and embarrassing. We look past the crisis and help our neighbors identify the core problems, address it together with them, with the goal to break the cycle of need. We focus our effort on 2 programs, Safety Net and Crisis Prevention. The Greer Relief team includes 5 employees and 3 full-time AmeriCorps volunteers, each providing some sort of element of direct service. Safety Net is what you probably think of us as. It's what everybody knows us best for, providing assistance to neighbors in need who are in crisis. Food, hygiene, household assistance, financial assistance, usually what most people walk in the door the very first time needing, plus case management for all financial assistance. Crisis prevention provides the next step tools to end the cycle and ensure that path for neighbors in need to become those neighbors who thrive. We listen, we share, we ask questions to put the puzzle pieces together, and help by offering hope. This program encompasses multiple layers of needs given a hand up, not a hand out. The Benefit Bank has been part of our program since 2010. It is a one-stop online resource application process that auto-populates applications for food stamps, Medicaid, and other government aid. In 2016, Greer Relief co-founded a new concept program with Loaves and Fishes and Greer Community Ministries. The Greer Food Co-op has been designed to serve anyone in need and do so in a way that promotes community, individual dignity, participation, and ownership of the co-op. Since 1991, the J. Vernon Smith Center has served as a non-stop service hub, helping bring people hope by offering a path to stability in their own backyard and across the street from this building here. In 2018, 5 organizations provided services to the community to answer the struggle by providing medical assistance, food, financial assistance, nutrition, education, job counseling, staffing, and referrals for a lot more. We were also blessed to receive grants for renovation. We renovated bathrooms and break room in the center. Also, the CBL Community Foundation grant started a renovation fund for the training room, which will remove 2 walls and triple on-site training space. We've also added a new partner this year. SC Works moved in and has already started work keys training, testing, and placing for job seekers. Plus, the Greer Free Medical Clinic will be expanding their services thanks to the Healthy Greenville 2036 grant from Prisma. Renew has been reaching every neighbor every way since 2015. This program takes the next steps down the path to stability. We focus on financial, job, and health and wellness classes taught by volunteers who want to be part of the healing. It's the doctor who teaches home remedies, the business owner who talks about how to keep a job, the nutrition students who prepare, cook, and share a taste of a new recipe. And it's the greatest benefits of the program we have found is it not only offers information and education, it offers community. It offers a safe space to talk, it offers a friend, it offers hope. And my favorite, since 2009, we've provided VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. Right now, as I stand in front of you, our volunteers are over there right now preparing taxes for households making $62,000 or less. And you ready for this? So far this year, Greer Relief has prepared taxes for 333 households, bringing to this community $525,898 for free. So far. We're not done. Taxes aren't done yet. We're not just helping with the traditional safety net. We're not just the old safety net of yesteryear. We are offering stabilizing programs to change the path and expand the impact. The impact is clear. We helped 3,355 of our neighbors, and 65% were new to need. We have shifted with the community to continue to be an impact. We self-assess, seek input and assessment from outside partners. We keep our ear to the ground for coming changes. All of these efforts go to make our community here in Greer better. We are always looking for neighbors who want to make a difference. We partner with lots of other nonprofits in the community to band together. share resources, and enhance the impact. We have opportunities for volunteers, donors, sponsors to all get involved. We ask everyone to please pay attention, to donate, to volunteer, to just help. And that service survey, so Trick, we do it all. Everything on that service survey happens at 202 Victoria Street in downtown Greer. I do want to invite you guys to our 5th annual neighborhood breakfast on May 14th. This year is going to be at J. Harley Bond's. We're excited the culinary students are going to be preparing breakfast this year for us. So we'll be featuring them at the breakfast. More details will be coming, of course, and of course a new testimonial from a neighbor who received services from Greer Relief. So. When we help each other, we help ourselves. I do want to share a little story from this last year's neighborhood. A woman, a mother, a daughter, a friend, a hardworking employee who thought she had it all planned out. Her son was starting college in the fall. Her daughter was doing fine in elementary school. She was working full-time at Adidas. She had health insurance, good support team. She needed an eye surgery. She worked it out with HR. It's what you do, right? How much time she'd be out, her paid leave, her return to work. Easy. Surgery went well. She was recovering. She returned to work part-time just as she planned. Then the lights went out. But not for everybody. Just for her. She was sitting at her computer at work. One minute she could see, the next she couldn't. Panic set in. Her good eye was not so good. A torn retina. Another surgery, this one unplanned. This one, while the other one was still recovering, she was blind. She was out of time. No more paid time off, no more savings to get by, but her son was starting college. Her best friend was a social worker for DSS and knew where to go. She held her hand and guided her to Greer Relief. Slow at first, but she didn't want a handout. She made it a little longer on her own. Then she really needed help. We were more than happy to sit down and see what we could do. Our AmeriCorps member sat down and helped her fill out the paperwork. Once she broke past the initial fear and pride of needing help, she flourished. She joined the Greer Food Co-op. She attended Renew classes. She got help with her rent. Her son started college at USC on time. Her mom and friend helped her get around when she needed, where she needed. She had her support. And then I'll let you hear from her.
What makes me happy now, because it's changed since I've been sick. It makes me happy is playing it forward. Even though I don't have a lot, I still try to make sure that, when I was at the lowest point this last year, going through all of this, how could I not help someone else who's in need? So just knowing I'm able to, even though I'm still not exactly where I was before I was sick, but with the little that I do have, helping others makes me happy. See my kids happy. And then, I think just living the life, seeing the life in a whole perspective there, because things that we take for granted, I took my eyesight for granted. I took smelling the road for being independent for granted. So just living life to the fullest is the best that I can be.
At Greer Relief, every neighbor does matter. That's my presentation.
Council?
Any questions?
Questions? Carolina, you've provided the information within the context of that, and I'm doing a little extrapolating as I was sitting here because I was going to ask you about growth. But it occurred to me, you're not, you served 3,500 last year, and you're on pace, I guess, with 1,000 in the first quarter this year. You're going to be roughly at that same number. I guess the thing that's most interesting to me is that if 65% of your clients are new clients, then our growth is not in the total number, but the fact that we're rolling basically almost 2,000 people off a year, but we're replacing with 2,000 new people is essentially what we're doing, is it not? So we may be close to capacity in the number that we're serving every year, but it's a rotating group of people. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay.
That we've hit a ceiling with the amount that we can help. It's just a matter of helping new people as they keep coming. So we've kind of had a threshold of chronic. So we're at about a third of the folks that we serve are chronic. They're the ones that year after year, we see the same faces. But I will say, thankfully, though, that we are able to see 65%.
Well, that seems like an amazing number to me. Yeah, it really does.
Flipped about 6 years ago. It was the opposite. So we have now at least got a base where we are now able to see a lot more new faces and be able to still help new and be able to get them going in the right direction rather than just helping the same 65% over and over and over again.
It's kind of a two-edged sword, though, because the 65% rate of rolling folks off is incredible. The fact that we're replacing that 65% on an annual basis is also very scary. Others?
I will say good news, though. We continue to have good support systems with our utility assistance. We have constantly got, between Commission of Public Works and Duke Energy, we have not run out of utility assistance, direct financial assistance, in about 3.5 years. Our rent assistance, when we have it, it's gone about as fast as we get it. So that assistance goes very fast. But utilities, thankfully, with good partners, we have a lot of assistance available for that. So.
And the SC Works, is that
Yes.
being staffed out of the Spartanburg office or the Greenville office?
Well, they said they're regional now. So,
Okay. Wasn't aware of that.
So she came from McAllister Square, but works in. I know.
We'll leave it at that, then.
I'll just leave it at that. I was told they were regional, so I will leave it at that.
All right.
But she's already had appointments. She had appointments in her first week, so she was bringing people in. So,
Good.
and has had several people come in and do testing. So I'm very happy. And by the way, that's also bilingual, so Spanish as well. So.
Anything else? Council? We thank you for what you do, as well as your board and your staff and all the others that serve our community there out of Greer Relief. It is indeed a true treasure for our community, and we appreciate not only the history of the organization, but the future of the organization. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. You all know me, but you may not know this new face. Madeline Bullock is our GIS planner. She's been with the city for 8 months, replacing Justin Kurt, who left to go to the private sector. And since coming on board, she's jumped right in and prepared and developed some new applications for GIS in the city and our residents. And without further ado, I'd like to have her share some of those with you tonight.
Hello, good evening, council. It's a pleasure to speak with you tonight. So this right here is something that I've been working on for the past couple of months. This is the development dashboard. So what this is showing, as you can easily see, it's the annexations, commercial properties, rezonings, and subdivisions that have been proposed. They're preliminary, they're upcoming. They've gone to preliminary approval, so that meaning they've gone to either the Planning Advisory Committee or Planning Commission, and they've got preliminary approval to start going through the process, but they've not yet received the building permit, zoning permits, or in the case of annexations and rezonings, they haven't officially had that second reading, and it hasn't been officially signed. So this is a way to keep track of things that Greer is currently working on. Because before I get into all the details of what this map can do and the tool, I want to explain kind of how this came about, why I decided I wanted to do this. So being a new person, and I'm kind of in my own little GIS island, I'm not in the thick of the building department. I don't always know 100% what's going on. So I was a little, off balance, like, okay, people are talking about this project, where is that? Still learning Greer, where everything was. So I needed something to really keep track of all these projects that we have that are currently being worked on. So that was one of my motivations for developing this, because I figured if I feel that way, maybe there's some other people out there that want to know what Greer is currently working on too, not just things that already exist. And then another reason why I came up with this is because the planning department has got a lot of requests for data like this. So for example, the president of Pelham Medical Center has come to us requesting information, like what's Greer working on right now. They want to know what we're doing, how that can help them plan, how they want to expand, how they can provide better services to Greer. So we've been requested to provide information like this, and then I also received a call from a man who wanted to know in a particular region how many residential lots. He wanted to know, okay, approximately how many people live in this area, because what he wanted to do was to leverage that information to try and attract a grocery store into the city of Greer. And he wanted to know what are some new subdivisions that are going to be coming into this area, so that way he can prove that yes, there's a demand for a grocery store in the city of Greer. So I think this is a tool that citizens, business people, and employees can all use to visually be able to see what Greer is working on, what's potentially going to come to fruition in a really cool interactive map. So what you can do, like our normal online GIS map, it's interactive, you can zoom them out, you can move things around. But even better, you can come over here on these side panels. You can see easily that these are the projects currently being under review, so the big numbers stand out and the colors match. Obviously the polygons in the map itself, so you can see visually where that is. So this makes a lot more sense than seeing it on a spreadsheet. If you see the line of a project, that doesn't always mean a whole lot, but once you see it on a map, you connect the dots and really see where that's going on. So you can come over here. So I'm going to start with the annexations. You can click on this arrow down at the bottom, and you get a list of those projects that are the annexations currently under review. And then you can click on a project. So I'm going to click on Blaze Ridge. The map will automatically zoom to that location, so you can see better get familiar with the area. You can zoom in more, and then that'll bring up address points and a little more information. And you can see on the right here, there's a legend that changes as your extent and what you're looking at in the map also changes. So you always have an explanation of what it is that you're looking at in the map. Then if you click on the project itself, this pop-up comes up, and this provides you with all the information you would need at a quick glance to get more about what is Blaze Ridge, what is this project that's going on. So you can see that it went to Planning Commission in January, and you can see the parcels that they're wanting to annex into the city. You can see that they're requesting zoning DRD, and if you're a citizen, you're like, what on earth is that? I don't know what DRD means. So you can click on this link, and it'll bring up an explanation of all the zonings in the city, and you can go down, give it a second to load. You can read about what DRD means, and you can get that explanation right there and what that means to you without having to dig through the website and try and find that information. It's right there, and then you can see it quickly. You can also click on, if you want to see the site plan, you can look at the meeting minutes, and you can look at the staff report, all specific to this project. And we'll see if these will load. I might not show them off. It'll take a second. But you can look at what the proposal will look like. You can see the site plans will be showing the layout that's been proposed to us, that's been given to us. You can see this is what they're saying Blaze Ridge is going to look like. And then if you wanted to go to the minute meetings, you can look on the map, it has the annexation, the docket number, and you can match that up with this project, so you can go right to that project, see what council or the committee had to say about it. And you can also go to that staff report and get a really detailed description of what staff had written about this particular project. So this really, you can come to this dashboard and see all the information you need right there at your fingertips and get everything you would need to, either satisfy your curiosity or if it's a more in-depth business proposal or research that someone's trying to do. And then also for an annexation and rezonings, what you can do if you're interested in the zoning of the property, like I said, this one's requested DRD, you can come up here in the right, there's a little layer button. You can click on that and it'll pull up some other layers. You can click down here onto the zoning map. So that will turn on the zoning layer, and you can see the other zoning, how the other areas are zoned, so you can see if what they're proposing makes sense for the area. So that helps you really see in relation to what else is on there, what are they trying to do. So I'll show you an example for a commercial property. Let's use the hotel. Again, you click on it, it'll zoom to it in the map. You can see what parcels are going to be involved in that project. Again, you can click on it. And this is a project that's gone to the Planning Advisory Committee, so it's a little more informal meeting. There's not minutes, but you can click and look at that site plan. Same thing for the rezonings. You can look at the list, pick a project to click on, and once you click on it, again, more than information about the meeting, the time, and the site plan, meeting minutes, and staff report are all there for you to click on and access. And then finally, some subdivisions. You can see the list here. These are proposed subdivisions that, again, grading permits or building permits haven't been received yet, but that they've come to the city saying this is what we want to do. You can click on it. And this one you can look at, it tells you the number of proposed lots and then what type of development it is. So for example, this one is proposing 92 lots in single family. Or another case it could be, you could say townhouse or mixed development. And that way you can really see how many new houses might be in this area. And if using that example of that person looking for information about the grocery store, you can also come again to the layer and you can click on this other subdivision layer. So it's what I'm showing right now is upcoming, but if you click on the subdivisions here that says complete or under construction, these are subdivisions that already exist in Greer. Either they're already complete, there's houses all built there, or they're currently being built. So you can look at, in relation to this new subdivision, what subdivisions already exist. You can click on those that are already existing, get the number of units, and then add everything together, and you can get a sense for how many lots and houses are in that region. And one other feature, if you want to see better what is in that area, you can click on this corner up here with the little squares and change the background, the base map, to an imagery. So if you wanted to see, okay, what actually is in this area from an aerial view, you can see, okay, it's mostly just trees. There's a little bit development down here at the bottom, but mostly this is just an open parcel. So just to give you a little more information if you need that. So overall, I think this is a tool that will be useful to employees, citizens, business people, anyone that wants to keep track of what's currently happening at Greer, what are we working on, and this gives a very powerful display of what's actually happening in the city. And then, if you notice in the upper left-hand corner where it says August 2018 to current, those are the dates of the projects that are currently under review. So most of the projects in this map are more current. They've been in January, February, where they've gone to the committees. But there are some of these subdivisions that were later on that's taking them a little longer to go through the review process. So this is a tool that will be updated monthly, and after the Planning Advisory Committee or the Planning Commission, and as new grading permits begin on a subdivision, that'll come off this map because it's no longer upcoming. It'll move to our normal mapping application, and then as new projects are proposed, they'll show up on this map. So that'll be once a month. And so with that, does anyone have any questions?
So this is already online?
Not yet. I wanted to present it to everyone here before we put it on our website.
And you plan to put it on there?
Yes.
When?
We haven't set it yet.
Oh.
Is the way you got it set up, I think it's 2, 3, 4, 5, that is Yeah, with 5 where you've got subdivisions, so I guess there's a logical order. You've got proposed annexations, and then you've got the rezonings, and then on 5, that would be parcels that's been annexed in, but subdivisions haven't been approved. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So, for example, the Blaze Ridge, that one's listed as an annexation first, because it hasn't been annexed into the city yet, but then that's a proposed subdivision, so then it'll be listed under the subdivisions. Does that make sense? And it's kind of funny that they are in order 2, 3, 4, 5, but these numbers will change as the number of projects in each category change.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're not necessarily, yeah, it's kind of funny, that's just kind of
Sorry about that. I thought that was some sort of order. I'm going to ask you where 1 was.
I didn't even realize that.
Hey, I was thinking the same. I was right there with you, Jay. I thought 1 was in everything in the city.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, where you got, the number 4 for rezonings, and then over on the right, it's got, rezonings too. What information is under this?
On the right-hand side, that is the legend, so that's explaining the symbology of what everything
I
is.
see.
So as you zoom in, it kind of changes. It shows that the black lines are streets. And if you zoom even more, and you see those little colored dots, that explains what color
gotcha.
corresponds to what type of business.
Yeah, I see.
This is an incredible tool.
That's really good.
It's going to be very helpful to us as new parcels attempt to come into the city, and I love how that feature that you have with the drop down, and you can see that the adjacent parcels, DRD, and this is C2, and this is that, and it really gives you a really nice visual that you can play with in advance of meetings to really help us make decisions. I think you've done a really good job, and we won't be calling Brandon as much before these meetings.
He better smile.
They can do some other things now, which they're probably really appreciative of what you've done too, so thank you.
That's pretty good. That's information.
Others?
Okay, thank you.
Madam, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's exciting.
That's good.
Mr. Greer, time for our administrator's report, sir.
Thank you, sir. I don't have anything new to show you in innovation. I am feeling the age difference between our newer staff and what I do day to day. In all honesty, we are very, very proud of what Madeline is doing. As you know, we approach our work from a team perspective. Building development standards supports the work that we are doing there, and we funnel that work through our respective divisions, some planning, zoning, GIS, a division of that area as well. These are tools that we develop in concert with each other, but our intent is so that these are tools that our community can use. We know that as a resource provider to our community, it's important for us that if someone needs to know something, that they don't always have to call in and reach someone on the telephone to try to get the answer they need. We're trying to use tools and technology that is available to us so that the general public can get those answers during the business day or during the evening when they're available, on the weekend, whatever the case may be. And then, of course, they have the ability to contact us with further questions, inquiries, those types of things. So this is the type of technology, this is the type of innovation, and you'll hear that a good bit from us when we talk about looking for innovative ideas from our staff. This is a great example. So, Madeline, congratulations. Really appreciate your hard work, but most especially as well, the support of folks that work in that team to help make that happen. Some of the things that I needed to share with council this evening is mostly calendar items, and there are reminders for many of those. But we have a couple of things coming up this week that we want to make sure that you are aware of, and hope that your schedule is going to provide you an opportunity to join us. We are celebrating this Friday evening with our employees and their families. That is our employee family picnic that is happening here in this facility on Friday evening, starting at 5 o'clock right after work. We'll have food trucks and those those types of things. We have well over 300 team members and their families coming in to join us on Friday evening. We do hope that your schedule will allow you to come participate with us as well. And if that's not enough fun for you, then bring your Easter basket and come out and join us the next day. We'll be out in the park celebrating the Egg-tastic Easter egg hunt. That's going to be on Saturday from 11 to 1. We get busier as we move into the month. Mr. Burns shared with you our spring cleanup day, which is going to be on Saturday, April the 27th from 8 a.m. to 1. We'll have information being sent out to the public through all of our media sources, our social media as well, making sure that we are informing the community that this is still what we used to call our amnesty day, but things that we can't always collect on the curb. Here is an opportunity and a resource to be able to get those items picked up as folks do their spring cleaning for this season. Our International Festival also takes place that day on April 27th. That has been an event that continues to grow for us. We'll be here in the park on Saturday the 27th from 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. As we celebrate with the community our International Festival. I wanted to make sure that we're getting on our calendars, and we're aware that these things are coming up as well. Family Fest that we participate in and sponsor with our local Chamber of Commerce. That is Friday and Saturday, May the 3rd and 4th. There are some alterations to how that festival has normally looked because of our streetscape project in downtown, so it's necessary for us to make some modifications. I think you'll be very, very pleased with how we shifted a lot of that, but much of that event will be here in City Park as we celebrate that Friday and Saturday for that annual event. I do also want to make you aware that you have received information from the Partnership for Tomorrow. They are conducting a community visit to Chattanooga. Many of us are participating in that event, but it'll be a Wednesday to Friday event. If you are interested in participating in that community visit, please let us know. Reach out to Tammy. We'll make sure that we get you the information that you need. If we need to get you registered, whatever we can do to assist with that, please let us know. And it'd be nice for us to have good representation from our elected officials on that community visit as well. That is Wednesday through Friday, May 15th, 16th, and 17th. Over in Chattanooga. We'll be driving over. A little further out on your calendar, just trying to make sure that we have that out there. But Freedom Blast will be on Saturday, June the 29th. Looking forward to that event. It is shaping up very, very well. And also as an update, our Synergy project, our streetscape project in downtown is moving forward well. We mobilized yesterday morning onto the 200 block of Trade Street. We are completing, in the process of completing our work on the 300 block of Trade. Pavers arrived earlier this morning, so we're in the process of working with our general contractor to get the remainder of the street pavers in, as well as any of the remaining pavers that would go into the parking areas, the parallel parking areas, finalizing any of our cuts and dressing up those paver cuts on the pedestrian side of that as well. So that's a little bit sooner than we had previously been told that those would arrive. So we're being able to get into that very, very quickly now. But again, mobilized into the 200 block, so that area from Randall Street up to Victoria Street is now blocked for vehicular traffic. No vehicles can come through that area at all as we work into that phase, but there is a 5-foot section of sidewalk in front of every business, and that will remain open the entire time that we're doing the demolition and the construction in the middle of Trade Street. Once we are prepared, we'll start doing the demo of those areas, placing in those areas in front of the businesses, removing that section of sidewalk, and coming in and getting the pavers installed there. It's a very, very brief window that a business actually has restricted access to the front of their building. We think that we can limit that primarily to 2 or 3 days. That's what we were able to accomplish on the 300 block. Most of our businesses in the 200 block have rear accesses to their businesses as well, so they are prepared to alter Their customers from the front and the back at different times have received very, very good feedback from our businesses in the 200 block. We did have a meeting last week made available to all of the merchants in downtown. We held 2 sessions last week, a morning session and an afternoon session, as well as we're continuing to give weekly updates, as well as doing periodic walk-ins to each of the businesses downtown. Our shuttle system is working really, really well. We're getting more and more riders in our electric vehicles on a regular basis. We rolled out last week a new app that enables people to request on demand for our shuttle system. It will give you, through the app, it will locate where the shuttles are, so you can see exactly where they're operating, but you can also request a shuttle to pick you up at your location, and it will come to you to get you either to the business you're trying to get to, or it will get you back to your vehicle where you've parked. So again, that system is growing, and we're finding good success with that. Our merchants seem to be very pleased with how that system is operating. At least their communications to us have been that way and been very, very positive. Received great media attention to the rollout of the app last week. Things are continuing to move forward. The project is on schedule, and we're looking forward to working with CPW as they do the tie-ins on the water meters there on the 200 block, and as we come in and work jointly with them to make sure that we're getting all of that infrastructure in place, demolition, infrastructure installment. Most of what you'll see there in the middle will be storm drainage and road work as we prepare to start putting the pavers in that section. While we're continuing to work in the Trade Street zone, you'll continue to see work on the peripheral of that area. Primarily, you're seeing that on Randall Street at this point as we continue to install storm drainage and come back in and pour new curb and gutter, new sidewalk for that part of the project area as we move forward. Those were calendar items that I wanted to share with you this evening, and also an update on our Synergy project. I'm certainly available to answer any questions that you may have this evening, or make ourselves available at any time for other issues or questions you may have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Council, with that, we will move to items of old business, of which we have several this evening. The first item of old business is the second and final reading of ordinance number 1-2019. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by William and Marcia Johnson and Ella Sudeth Nichols, located at 1689 Gibb Shoals Road and 122 Nichols Drive by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said properties. Ms. McCormick, new or additional information in regards to 1-2019?
Thank you, Mayor Danner. Madeline set me up perfectly to let you see the second and final reading of ordinance number 1-2019, Blaze Ridge. This first came back to you in January 8th for first reading. Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval on January 14th, and so for second reading we're here this evening, and I don't have any new information other than I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have regarding this development.
For the purpose of discussion, do I hear a motion to receive?
Second.
Motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion.
I looked at that in the information that was sent on the internet. Most of that is kind of back in, so it's not going to be one that where sidewalks are going to be like on the outside of the road, right? Because if I'm looking correctly, then this bottom part over here has still got some land out beside it before it gets to Suber. Is that correct?
That's a great question. They will install sidewalks along their perimeter frontage.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And then they don't have any frontage here, and then this is directly adjacent to Sudeth Farm, and they'll be connecting pedestrian access through this cul-de-sac in that area. And then they only have an emergency access up to Nichols, so we are not requesting they install sidewalks in that emergency.
Okay, when I looked at it, that was kind of what I saw. I just wanted to kind of verify.
Yes, ma'am.
Others? Comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, we have the second and final reading of ordinance number 9-2019. This is an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of an economic development agreement by and between the City of Greer, South Carolina, and Project O'Hare with respect to infrastructure credits to be applied against fee in lieu of tax payments related to certain investments in the city and other related matters thereto. Mr. Driggers, any new or additional information in regards to ordinance number 9-2019?
Contained in your packet is the ordinance in its entirety. Also attached to that is that development agreement identifying the project that we will be working with moving forward. So all that is disclosed through these documents as well. There is no additional information or changes that we've had since we discussed this project with you at your last meeting.
Entertain a motion to receive for the purpose of discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments?
Yeah, this horse been big enough.
In that case, Ms. Duncan.
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council will move to items of new business, first of which is the memorandum of understanding with Greenville County Multi-Jurisdictional Drug Force Unit. This is an agreement with the Multi-Jurisdictional Drug Force Task Force. This agreement is to create a special task force between municipalities of Greenville County, the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, and the 13th Solicitor's Office, and will combine resources to investigate and prosecute violations of illegal drug trafficking across Greenville County. Our police chief, Matt Handy, joins us for an explanation this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate your time this evening. I'm here this evening to present to you a proposed agreement that will create a multi-jurisdictional drug enforcement task force to address investigations of drug crimes throughout Greenville County and the city of Greer. Currently, Greer PD has 2 detectives assigned specifically to investigations of vice-related issues such as the sale and consumption of illicit drugs, the illegal alcohol sales, prostitution, and gambling. Our detectives have been effective throughout the years. However, we often find that our investigations can be hampered by jurisdictional boundaries. Illegal drugs, by their nature, are trafficked from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Users of drugs must obtain their drugs from a drug dealer. Dealers are frequently on the move, and they move from one location to another, sometimes originating in Greer and then moving to another area of Greenville County or Taylors or Greenville, Malden, and vice versa. Our undercover and covert drug investigations that occur in Greer often lead us to work in other areas, but we are strictly reliant upon the cooperation of other agencies to partner with, and many times investigations may begin in other cities or other parts of Greenville County, and they may need to come into Greer to continue the investigation. However, when those situations occur, you're basically at the mercy of the other agency that you're intending to work with. They have their scheduled priorities, resources, or lack of available resources. So many times, unfortunately, some of these investigations may come to a screeching halt because of the jurisdictional issues. This is not a new problem. It's something we've been dealing with for many years. And many of the other police chiefs and sheriff's office have agreed that this is something that we might have an answer for. So some of the police chiefs, we got together about a year ago, and we started discussing the concept of a multi-jurisdictional task force. The interest was high early on, so we decided to visit another example of such a concept. We visited York County, South Carolina, and they've been operating in this task force environment for close to 20 years. So we visited them, we attended one of their governance board meetings, and we watched how the process works, and we took that model and we've drafted a very similar model here for Greenville County. And we were able to ask a lot of those tough questions from many of those agencies in York County, We got extremely positive responses to all of our concerns. So we have drafted well, it's a final draft, but we've been through many versions of the proposed agreement, and it would be structured as follows. I'll hit a few of the highlights. Members of the task force would be Greenville Sheriff's Office, Greenville Police Department, Greer, Malden, Fountain Inn, Simpsonville, Travelers Rest, and the 13th Circuit Solicitor's Office. Each agency will assign their personnel currently assigned to the task of narcotic investigations to the task force. So in our case, our 2 detectives that are assigned to this function would be reassigned or assigned to the new task force. The personnel assigned to the task force will be employed by their home local jurisdiction for issues such as salary, benefits, overtime, equipment, but they will work under the daily direction of the commander of the task force. A governance board will be created consisting of the chief executive of each agency or their designee. The governance board will select a commander of the unit. The commander will be an employee of the 13th Circuit Solicitor's Office and will be compensated by the Solicitor's Office. The board will meet monthly to guide the overall direction of the task force as well as to monitor its performance. Forfeitures and seizures that result from the investigations of the task force will be divided according to state law for the initial 25%. The remaining 75% will be divided amongst the member agencies according to the percentage of their personnel that they've contributed to the overall task force. So for an example, if we contribute 2 members to the task force and they have a total of 20 members, then we would receive 10% of those proceeds from the remaining 75% that aren't required by state law to go certain places. So it's my opinion and the opinion of our staff that becoming a member of this task force will result in a more effective enforcement of drug crimes not only in Greenville County but in the city of Greer as well. Therefore, I'm requesting council's approval for the city of Greer to enter into the memorandum of understanding for the Greenville County Multi-Jurisdictional Drug Enforcement Unit. Be happy to answer any questions.
Council, with a recommendation from staff, I'll entertain a motion to receive the information regarding the memorandum of understanding with the Greenville County Multi-Jurisdictional Drug Enforcement Unit. Do I hear a motion?
So motion.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
Now, let's take a skip at the Greer County side. What are your plans for Spartanburg County?
Yes, good question. We already have in place memorandums of understanding with the Greenville Sheriff's Office as well as all the municipalities from Greenville County. We created the municipal agreement last year. So that's already in place, and the one with the Sheriff's Office for Greenville is already in place. So they will in turn have jurisdiction on the Spartanburg County side of Greer because of those agreements that are already in place.
For clarification, those agreements with the entities of Spartanburg County and the municipalities of Spartanburg County.
I believe I've seen a lot of headlines about the asset forfeiture. Is there any state action to change the laws about asset forfeiture?
There's a House bill, can't cite the number, I knew it last week, but there is a House bill that has been assigned to committee, so we'll see what happens with that. I hear predictions, and I hear predictions that the Senate may not pass such a bill, but there is a significant push for that in the House.
I don't want to get off point, but if someone is arrested, and yet you've got it all in this agreement, I read how it's all divvied up, and you went over just now, but what, you arrest somebody and get $10,000 worth of cash on them, what happens to that money?
Certain circumstances could possibly make that $10,000 subject to either consent forfeiture, or if not, possible seizure. So, but that money would be considered evidence in the case, but after the criminal process has proceeded or is completed, there's a disposition on that case, that money could therefore be subject to the civil process of forfeiture. And at that point, it would be signed by a judge to be forfeited to the task force, and then divided appropriately as the agreement lays out.
That would be with a guilty verdict?
Well, currently, the way the law is written, there is not that requirement. Our practice in Greer has been a forfeiture is not proceeded with unless there is a criminal case made. And then we will submit that to the solicitor's office to process for forfeiture.
You say in the law, go ahead.
What was the task force position on that then?
They would follow the law as it is now. So they would not operate in a manner that the proposed legislation that's lingering out there. So the main beef of the legislators, my understanding, is the concept of having people forfeit their cash and no charges made on the criminal side. And that's probably how this task force would operate. We'll have a governance board in place. I know all the agencies involved follow that same concept. So I can't imagine that this would change to any kind of way where we would be seizing money without making a criminal charge. And that's the good thing, is we have a governance board that's set up, that we will meet monthly, and we will govern how the unit is managed by the commander. So there is a process of checks.
So this task force would, with or without a guilty verdict, be able to keep the seized assets?
Yes, but they are always submitted to the court through the civil process to be approved by a general sessions circuit court judge under a civil law.
How do you take assets without somebody being convicted? It's by law they can take it without?
Yeah, because the way the laws were made over time, they were made parallel to each other instead of integrated with each other. So the legislation that's up now for consideration in the House is to merge all that into one process only through the criminal court system. And my prediction is, no matter what happens with that particular bill, because it goes pretty far, I do think that there will be a change that at least requires the criminal charge to be made.
The new legislation is supposed to make it a much fairer, easier way to retrieve your stuff if there's been no charges filed. Heretofore, people have carried like a large sum of money and been stopped for something, and they've confiscated that money, and it took years to get it back.
Yeah.
So that's it.
I would also just guard against that piece that came through Greenville News, and this is where all this started. They did take the most extreme cases across the state for several years back, and that is not how we treat that asset forfeiture process, nor do the overwhelming majority of jurisdictions in the state. They don't use those loopholes that were identified by that piece that was done by the Greenville News and Anderson Independent Mail. So
if the task force makes an arrest, and assets are seized, and there is a not guilty verdict rendered, then those assets are kept, and it has to go to a civil matter, and a judge has to rule whether to give them back or not.
That's correct.
But here in the city, our practice is that we do not seize assets, or we do not hold assets, seized assets, if a not guilty verdict is issued. Is that what you said?
Well, we will present them through the civil process, and that does have to be signed off. So there are a lot of reasons that a not guilty, or a case, it could be disposed of, and a lot of times those are recommendations made by the defense attorney. In lieu of a conviction, the assets are forfeited. So there's all sorts of things that happen with the solicitors and the defense attorneys. So many of those are at the actual request of the defense as well. So there's a lot of different ways that those resources can be seized or forfeited. So it's not all cut and dry where you always have guilty and then the seized money is then given to the municipality or governmental agency.
Well, I like the idea of everybody working together. That makes complete sense. It's a state law. I guess I understand if they're during the trial or during the negotiations with the defense, they agree to give up something in order for them to gain something. But where there is no agreement, and then there is a issue, or there is a verdict of not guilty, and then, because I could see where that could be bad.
Now, like you said, if there is a court case where there is not guilty, and that person requests to have their funds returned, then they still have to go through all the hoops, or?
There is a process in place for that.
What I'm saying, though, is if I'm not guilty, then how are you going to keep my money?
Well, on the front end, it's seized because there is a nexus identified between that money and the association with illegal drug crime occurring.
Yeah.
So that has to be present to start with.
Yeah.
So, there is that other process in place for them to challenge the how that money is disposed of.
I understand that part about, how you get to take it in the first place, but I'm saying once it goes through the court system and they hear the not guilty plea, then I say, I want my money back. You still got the right to keep my money even though it's been not guilty in court?
Well, again, the negotiations in most all, in general sessions level cases, 97% of the cases are not tried in court, so they are negotiated out from the solicitor's office to the defense. So those are all on the table, all those things, when they make
I
those
understand that where it's negotiated out if he forfeits it, because there's a reasonable, chance he might, he's going to let it go because there's a reasonable chance. He's okay with that. But I'm saying, if he's found not guilty, after he's went through everything, he's found not guilty, and he asks for his money back, are you still allowed to keep his money and divvy it up? Then even though he's, I know what you're saying about how you, how to make deals and how, he may say, well, go ahead and keep it. I'm not going to have to go through the court and all this, and I understand it, but I'm saying, if he goes through the court and he's found not guilty by a jury of his peers, then are you still allowed to keep, what you...
It would all depend on the judge who handled the civil action that was filed. So that would be up to the judge.
But to go to civil action, that individual would have to hire legal representation, more than likely.
That would be up to their discretion, but most of the time they would, yes.
Council, let's loop back around here and get back to the memorandum of understanding. We can ask the chief and possibly the city attorney to help us with this issue more if we'd like in the future. But in regards to the memorandum of understanding, let's redirect our questions in that regard. Any other questions or comments in regards to the memorandum of understanding?
Well, no disrespect, but I think that is part of it, because we as a city operate the way we operate is going to be a little different than the way this joint task force is going to operate. That was kind of my point. I was trying to get some facts about it, but and I know there's there will be a governing body that is developed by this memorandum. I'm just wondering if as a council, should we ask
I think
Chief
that's-
Hamby to,
I think that's a policy difference more than a legal difference, because we're not doing anything different than the law, and neither is the other members of this body. We just choose as a policy to do something different. And so, I don't know that it's really much different. To the point that we're making here is that if there is a nexus of probability, then that becomes, for all intents and purposes, evidence. And it would be the same evidence, is whether it's money or goods or whatever, and the way that you acquire that back after any kind of court action is through the remedy that's given in the civil side.
And I will assure you that, the governing board members, which will be the chief executives, we've discussed this for several months. And I feel very comfortable that we all are on the same page, that is absolutely not the intent of this task force. It is definitely to identify, make arrests, and intercept illegal drug trafficking throughout the county and the city of Greer. And we do think that many crimes across the county, including property crimes, a lot of them are caused by the epidemic of drug addiction. And that is the primary goal of this task force, is to make a positive effect on the drug crisis we frankly have. We have people literally overdosing and dying off of opioids every few weeks throughout the county. So that is our goal. The forfeitures and seizures is by far not our priority or focus. We do we've discussed many times our vision and concept of this task force, and it absolutely is not to go out there and collect people's money and offset what would be right. So those situations that are painted by the Greenville News piece, those were not, those, if you read those, I absolutely do not believe that those examples are going to be repeated by this task force. I think we all have the same approach to seizures and forfeitures, and that those seizures should be based on cases where there is highly likelihood of conviction because the evidence is there.
No, please don't misunderstand me. I'm in agreement with this group being put together, and I think that there needs to be more agencies working together on a lot of different problems. And my questioning about the seizure of assets it was literally headlines, and it was not out of the Greenville News. It was maybe the State or the Post-Inquiry, whatever. But I would ask that whoever, if it's you or if you assign someone to talk about issues like that, the governing board, that you would make that clear that is that's problematic for me.
Understand.
By the way, that's House Bill 3968. Tommy Stringer is a sponsor of it, so you might contact him if you want to know the bottom line.
Others?
Well, I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Arrowood said, also that I understand the need to work, across, the city lines and that. I'm just, taking you at your word, and I'll take you at your word too, that's not what we're in it for. I don't want to be a part of taking something from somebody that's not guilty. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be a part of that, period, Agrees. I don't think that's what we stand for, and I'll take you at your word for, that that's not what you and the others have intended for this to be.
Agreed.
Anything else? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker? Yes. Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve. Next item this evening is seeking approval for the purchase of a ladder truck, and Chief Dorian Flowers joins us for that conversation.
That's what you can do with forfeited funds.
There you go. Good evening, Mayor.
Not good today. You got a whole lot of zeros.
Involved on that side. Tonight, I'm bringing to you a proposal recommendation to replace the ladder truck. As some of you are aware, the ladder truck we currently have is 21 years old. I believe it's been almost 3 years ago, Mayor, that you looked at me about like you are right now and said, "Are you coming to us for a ladder truck?" I said, "Not anytime soon." So now's the time. Okay. So we set out with some general requirements. Some we knew on the front end, and some we found out after or towards the back end of this project. And we've been working on this for a little over 15 months now to get to this point. So the requirements are that the truck must be located at the point set station to provide the best coverage. It has to be under 11 foot tall and less than 50 feet long to fit in that facility. And then also another major requirement is to be able to be maneuverable on the city streets, and particularly downtown and also the mill villages. So then we have some desirable specifications. The current truck is 70 foot. We wanted to do 100 foot or greater. There are some trucks a little bit higher than that, a little bit longer than that. We wanted a platform to provide a safer work surface at height for the firefighters if they have to go up on a major event. We wanted capable flows equal to 2,000 gallons a minute or greater. The current truck is 1,500. And we wanted a sole source manufacturer, and one of the reasons we wanted that is because some of the trucks we currently have is not sole source. So you have a cabin chassis that's built by one manufacturer, and then you have the body and everything that's upfit by another manufacturer. And some manufacturers are better than others. So this is not a dig at non-sole source manufacturers in general, but our experience has been that when we've had some issues, we've had manufacturers kind of doing one of these numbers and pointing us different directions. And also because of current experience, we wanted to hopefully look at choices of engines other than Cummins. Those are the engines that we have primarily in all of our apparatus currently. In the past 4 years since I've been here, not because I've been here, I want to make sure we clarify that, there has been at least 3 turbos replaced on Cummins engines on the trucks that we have right now. And as you can imagine, that's not cheap. And then, of course, we wanted maneuverability to be equal to or greater or better than the current ladder truck. So how do we get to this recommendation? Well, we started out with the idea that we would possibly place this truck at the Pelham Bay School Station 2, just because it had more height in the apparatus bay doors, so we wouldn't have that limitation to deal with, and that building also has depth. We considered a straight stick ladder truck rather than a platform due to height restrictions at Hood Road. Hood Road was going to be our backup location because out of the 2 stations that we have, those bay doors are taller than the ones at our Poinsett station. We used the HGAC buy as a starting point for budgeting purposes because, as you can imagine, something of this size is expensive, and we had to have some kind of a number to start with at a budgeting point. So that is very similar to the South Carolina State contract. It's a competitively bid process, that kind of stuff, and we can purchase off of that. In fact, recently, I believe, Ann purchased some playground equipment off of that and saved a considerable amount of money. Then, this was the major determining factor. We conducted our GIS study that looked at resource deployment, and that was not just our department, but all of our partner agencies around us. And it took into account their locations as well as where they had ladder trucks, where they didn't have ladder trucks, and identified that we have to put our ladder truck at our main station. So that meant we had to make sure that this truck would fit at the Poinsett station. So kind of just a old versus new. The old ladder truck is 10 foot high, 42 feet long, 70 foot long, or reach, 63 feet horizontal. The reason the difference is obviously that ladder is mounted on top of the truck, so there's a little bit of height difference in that. When you have a horizontal reach, there's a difference there. And then it has a Detroit 370 horsepower engine, has a 1,500 gallon pump, and 300 gallons of water. The recommendation that we bring to you tonight is 10 foot 8 overall height, which will fit in our main station, and 41 foot 7 inches, which is probably something of note here, because this truck is actually shorter than our existing truck, but the ladder on this truck is 30 feet longer. So it has a vertical reach of 100 feet and a horizontal reach of 93. It has a larger engine, partly because this ladder is made out of steel. The current ladder is made out of aluminum, so it's a little lighter weight. And then it's a 2,000 gallon pump with a 300 gallon tank. This is just an example. This is actually an example drawing of what we are recommending. I'm not sure that you can make out all the highlighted areas, but basically what I want you to compare with the next picture is you'll notice the rear overhang behind the rear tandems, how much overhang there is there. The next one will be over 240 inches worth of overhang. This one is 157 inches, I believe. 157 inches. And the overall height, again, is 10 foot 8 inches. Again, this truck is 41 feet long, roughly. As a comparison, this is a newer model of the Sutphen, which is the same brand that we currently have, and it's a 100-foot platform as well. It's an aluminum ladder, and you'll see that it is 47 foot long, and like I said, 241 inches of overhang on the rear. Mr. Airwood can probably attest to the risk of having that much hanging out over the rear of the truck when you're making a turn and not knowing what you might hit when you make that turn. So what is the cost? The original manufacturer's quote came in at $1.2 million. The HGAC process gives us a discount of $24,508 and gives us an HGAC price of $1,231,566. We get a prepayment discount of $64,409, leaving us with a final truck cost and what we bring to you tonight of $1,167,157. The original lease purchase allocation, based off of what we actually budgeted originally, is $1,056,820. We immediately realized that we had to make up a shortfall, so we canceled some equipment and a vehicle that we had in our current lease purchase. That accounts for $54,817. And then there's some additional lease purchase capacity of $63,725. And that makes total funds available of $1,175,362, leaving a remaining balance to the good of $8,205. Mr. Seifert is here tonight to my right to answer any additional questions that may come up at the end of this in reference to financing. And in summary, we recommend the purchase of a 100-foot Pierce platform in the amount of $1,167,157 using the HGAC buy program. Again, that program is a cooperative purchasing program that utilizes competitive bid and proposal processes similar to the South Carolina state contracts.
Council, you hear the recommendation from the department head. I'll entertain a motion to receive for the purpose of discussion and questions.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion, second floor is open for discussion, questions or comments.
Price on the document that we received, the memorandum, show the 1.2.
Yes, ma'am. That didn't take into account the discounts that we just shared with you.
Can you go back to the other page?
Which page? With the numbers?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
There you go.
So What do you do with the existing truck we have?
Well, funny you asked that. So, one of the reasons that we were a little bit short was we originally had a quote from a truck resale vendor that had offered to buy the truck, and then whenever they started actually looking at all the details, they first declined to buy the truck. Originally the offer was $55,000 and some change. Then they came back and declined. Then we went back and forth with them, and they finally offered us $5,000 with the caveat that it passed the pump test, which I'll tell you that it currently will not pass the pump test. So our recommendation is
Boss, you can scrap it for $5.
That's right. That's exactly right.
My recommendation to that is to put it on Gov Deals, and see what it will bring.
Wasn't that repaired at one point?
Yes, sir.
The ladder.
The truck actually was sideswiped. There was an accident sideswiped. It was about $70,000 worth of repairs made on insurance, and then we spent quite a bit more money out of our annual maintenance program to do some additional repairs of things that weren't covered by insurance, but probably were related. And right now, even to make that truck anywhat near serviceable, we don't even know where to begin on pricing of that, and it's 21 years old.
You may recall that we had an underinsured driver that struck the vehicle.
Yes.
And so the repairs were more costly than he had insurance coverage. And so we had to do the difference.
So there's no other use for this vehicle. I mean, if we did away with the ladder part, you don't have any other use for a vehicle like this?
You could take and have it taken somewhere and have the ladder and all that removed, but I would not recommend it. I've been with an agency prior to here that did that, and it did not turn out as well as they hoped.
The Gov Deals option gives us the ability that we release all liability relative to the truck by transferring ownership of the truck as well. Typically, what you'll find on Gov Deals is someone's buying it as a hobby vehicle, not for use in a department, is what we would suspect. But even if someone were to purchase it for their use in another jurisdiction, our position would be, we want to make sure that we have no liability associated with that vehicle. We just need to move it out of our...
And actually, to that point, I've come before you a couple times of getting permission to donate vehicles in the past. This is not one that I would recommend donating for that very reason.
Chief, what's the upfit cost on a truck like that, and how much are we going to be able to transfer off the old truck onto the new one?
Most of the equipment will transfer. This truck will actually come with all new ground ladders. There's some things that it hasn't come with to meet the NFPA standards. But for the most part, we will have the equipment to upfit that. The good news is that even right now, if you guys approve this purchase, it will not be here for another 15 to 16 months. So we're talking August of next year. So we'll have time to be able to plan out that and go through the normal budget process for that.
Others?
David? Make me happy.
Excuse me. What was that,
I said, make me happy.
Okay. Just like to quickly address two things. One is in regards to the HGAC buy program. Our current procurement ordinance does allow us to utilize any competitively bid purchasing cooperative, which the HGAC program is. So it meets our procurement code. Looking at the truck cost, I do want to point out that you understand we are prepaying for this truck to get that $64,000 discount. So we were, once if you approve this, we will be cutting a check for 1.1 million, 15, 16 months before we receive the truck. Just understanding that we're, that cash outlay will be happening immediately upon approval. And then looking at the available fund side, on the financing side, just want to make sure you understand that the line item we approved from the budget was $1,056,000. that as Chief Flowers stated, they immediately canceled some purchase orders for vehicles and equipment to go on those vehicles. And then I would have to assume you're asking the question, where did this additional lease purchase capacity come from? In any given year, we have old lease purchases that are outstanding, just the inevitable nature that things come in, on the most part, a little cheaper than we budget. And those funds we hold for emergencies that may come up on something that is unplanned. So at present, we have 3 lease purchases that are outstanding that have old money that are just kind of sitting in there. Most of that money is earmarked for specific programs or specific projects that are ongoing today. In particular, to track it, Edmonds, those are software conversions. Those are ongoing, so there's money that is earmarked from these old lease purchases. However, there are funds that are just truly excess, and they're from savings from the projects as they've gone through the process. So to get to this $63,000 of lease purchase capacity in the current year lease purchase, we were able to shift certain purchases in this year's lease purchase to some of those older lease purchases to free up this cash within this year's lease purchase to purchase the fire truck. And then the remainder of that is from working on projects a year and a half ago in the budgeting process, one of them being in the fire department, where they're working on their station alerting and 911 call center and all the communications that are involved with that. We were expecting on the IT side to have to upgrade our network. When these projects actually came into fruition, the impact on our network was not as intensive as we anticipated a year and a half ago. So that those funds were not needed to upgrade the network at this time. So the combination of being able to shift some asset purchases to other lease purchases, as well as the excess funds not needed to upgrade our network presently, are where we were able to come up with that $63,000.
And also, to address one other thing that he pointed out, which is true, we would be, if approved, we would be allocating these funds now, and the truck would not be actually delivered for another 15, 16 months. We do have a performance bond in this, so we're protected. Our funds are protected, so if they don't deliver, which I don't think that would ever be a problem, but if they didn't, we are protected, we get our money back.
Other?
Now we got 21 years out of the other truck. How many years do you expect to get out of this truck?
I don't know. I hope at least that long, but we don't know. We won't know until we get there.
Now, we ain't want to spend $1 million, you come back next year.
No, I'm sure you won't. I assure you that.
Make me happy.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
All right.
Questions? Comments? Additional discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Bookert?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Council, the next item before us this evening is the first reading of ordinance number 10-2019. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Greer zoning code of ordinance by repealing and then replacing Article 5 zoning district regulations, Section 5-3-3 and Sections 5, 4-5, accessory building setbacks within the City of Greer. Mr. McMahon, I believe you've got additional information in that regard, sir.
Yes, sir. Staff is requesting for ordinance 10-2019 to amend the accessory building setback section of the ordinance to change the allowable size of accessory structures and property zoned R20 and lower. So that'd be R20 all the way down to RM2. The proposal is that all accessory structures shall not exceed 30% of the primary dwelling, shall not exceed the height of the primary or principal structure, and shall be constructed of similar material of the principal structure. Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 22nd and recommended approval. Within the past year, we received roughly 3 to 4 applications downstairs and building development standards to build accessory structures in excess of 1,400 to 3,000 square feet. They meet the current intent of the ordinance and the requirements of the 20%. As soon as these start to go up, we start to get calls from residents about, this is so out of character for the neighborhood, is there something we can do? So we were bringing this to you as an update. This is kind of what most municipalities are doing currently. That's all the information I have at this time, but I will be happy to answer any questions.
You said you were getting requests for, what was the size again now?
We've had them range from 1,400 square feet to 3,000 square feet.
That's another house.
That's typically the complaint we get, is the structure that is being built is bigger than the primary residence.
For purposes of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive ordinance number 10-2019.
So moved.
And a second. Floor is open for discussion.
So according to what this says, if you have a one-layer residence, you couldn't build a two-layer garage behind it.
That is correct.
Why is that?
We were trying to base it off how other municipalities have modeled it, so we're not so far out of line with what other municipalities are doing.
That's a pretty common thing, though, to have a two-car garage with some type of quarters upstairs.
I guess you could address that through the Board of Zoning Appeals, though.
They could appeal that to go from a one-story to a two-story through the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance.
I think in regards to the examples that I've brought to staff, this is an issue that doesn't necessarily concern the garage and garage apartments and that sort of thing, even though we've got some examples, even in our neighborhood, where we've got structures that exceed the height of the existing home, even in some cases that are two-story homes. I think the intent, or what I had hoped the intent of this to be, and what I take the intent of this change to be, is to regulate those requests and building requests that we are getting for structures now that, as Mr. Griffin just brought to our attention, in some cases exceed the house, the size of the house that's on the property. In a case where you've got a building that is over 2 stories now, with over 3 bay doors, and is along 5 feet within a property line, you are considerably affecting those that are around you, and I think this is to reel some of that in, not necessarily to prevent somebody from adding a garage addition to their home.
So it's like Riley said, how does a homeowner go about, adding a garage that's in taste? How do they go about it?
You would file for your permit, and then if it were denied, you would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
In that same vein, I know what you're talking about, but it's actually fairly close. There's two, to your neighborhood, there's 2 examples that people have constructed garage apartments that wouldn't be allowed under this ordinance. And one is at the corner of Pine, Poinsett, and then the other one's just right around the corner, going towards your house. What's that Green Street that goes from Pine over?
It's parallel to Pine.
What's the first left off Pine?
Wood Avenue? Wood Avenue? You're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Wood.
Right, and there's a garage apartment behind that house. And it's not so much, I think the height is,
Yeah.
the height is...
Behind the first house there?
Right. Yeah. But it's the 30% that I think would get them. I mean, I understand the height. I think things need to be, architecturally correct. But it would prevent things like that.
Yeah, and that's not in bad taste at all, what he has there.
No, there's 2 of them. It's really nice.
I can say that this would address an issue we had in our neighborhood since the covenants and restrictions went away, and I had a lot of complaints about especially about the materials being used and the height, and it was just really out of character for the neighborhood. And I remember at the time, our response was, well, we don't necessarily have anything to address this, and I think that this nicely addresses that particular structure.
And to Councilman Airwood's point, it does become difficult when you start talking about aesthetics and that sort of thing, but I think part of my concern is not the folks that want to do a legitimate garage apartment. It's when you've got a house on a lot that's 2,500 square feet and you have somebody that wants to do a quote-unquote auxiliary outbuilding that's 3,800 square feet behind it. There is not a reasonable use that I can think of that's not either going to include some sort of commercial venture or storage that would not fit in character with that as well too. I don't think. I mean, that's part of my issue is what do you if you've got a metal building that is 80 feet long and 60 feet deep and 2 stories high behind your residential home, why do you need that? What is it? I mean, even if you've got the stuff to fill it up with, doesn't seem that would be the appropriate place to do that.
And certainly, within the context of this, it doesn't apply to RS zoning, residential suburban. So when you do have larger lots out in the less developed, less dense areas of the city limits, you can put those barn structures up behind your property to house your hobby cars or things that you need such a large structure for. But you're correct, we have seen in perhaps commercial activity occurring in these types of structures or prepared, I wouldn't say hoarding of lots of stuff, but that seems to be the case. We just have a lot of excess things going on in those buildings that may not be necessarily in character with the neighborhood. And with the 2-story, I don't believe that variance would be the avenue to do that. We were concurring and thinking that it would be that if you're interested in doing an amendment to this, that would allow that. However, it was intent of staff and then unanimously by the Planning Commission to keep the accessory dwelling in concert with the character of the principal structure. That way you don't have things out of balance with a single-family dwelling that's 1 story and the neighborhood is simply comprised of that type of structure, and then all these 2-story buildings in the rear of those.
Well, we talked about Pine Street. There's 2 great examples on the corner of Pine and Arlington. They crammed garages on their property, and it looks great. I don't see a problem. The one on the right probably wouldn't pass this. The one on the left may be bigger than 30%, but they don't look bad because they use materials in keeping with the neighborhood.
Right. We have had complaints about the height of those structures, though. Everyone doesn't feel as though those are in concert with their neighborhood. You shed when you get into a denser living environment.
Which home have you had complaints on?
Some on Pine Street with garage structures behind those homes.
The particular ones that
Those look nice.
They do look nice.
If you got that much time on your hand, you need to find something else to do, because those look nice, Somebody interested in somebody that's, what I'm saying, that just wants to go around and enforce their will on somebody else, because those structures have been there forever, and they are in keeping with that neighborhood, and they look good.
If it's certainly council's will, we can take a friendly amendment to change that to not be limited to the same height as the principal structure.
They'll have to go back to the planning commission.
Correct, that would have to go back and be reviewed.
Because this is coming as a recommendation of the planning commission, if you amend, the amendment has to go back to the planning commission to be considered. And if you take action, remember, they approved it as written. It requires a 2/3 majority of council to take an action contrary to the action of the planning commission.
Well, I don't know I'd like to see it changed. I don't know how I would amend it right now because I haven't given it that much thought. But aesthetically, I understand the building materials. I think that's important. I'm not so sold on aesthetically the height, the size, limiting it to 30% in the height of the existing dwelling. I'm not so sure about that. And I don't know how you codify that, but that's the hang-up that I have.
The 20% of the rear yard, that's in the current code. How does that stack up when we, with subdivisions that, I guess it was O'Neill Village that was originally proposed to be traditional neighborhood where you had, real loading homes. But I've seen some subdivisions where you actually have a detached garage and the home on a, it's a zero lot line.
O'Neill Village is certainly a unique example, and as we move towards, we have more requests for planned development, more mixed-use communities like that. The zoning in those doesn't really apply to this. When they write the statement of intent for a DRD or a planned development, all of those regulations are independent to that community. And so you have almost 100% coverage on a lot of those lots because they do have those large open space areas within their community to make up for that lack of yard.
Where we would typically see this applied is in areas certainly where we don't have like an HOA. Most neighborhoods where we would have an HOA, if we had a particularly small, the HOA would just prohibit it. But this is really what we run into more so in areas that there are no neighborhood associations and those types of things. And we'll get that type of feedback often from a resident or property owner that will question an action of an HOA, and we have to explain to them that that is not a city ordinance. That is a restriction and a covenant that they agreed to when they purchased their home in that neighborhood, that they would be under those restrictions and covenants. And so we get a lot of confusion from our residents, depending on where they live.
Another good example of one that wouldn't pass this regulation is Greg Hollow's house, up there on the corner of Poinsett and Pine. That wouldn't fit because that's two-story, well above the top of his house. And I bet it's 30%, at least over 30% of his house. But it looks, that's always been a really good-looking spot.
Yeah, we're not advocating that should be there. That is just what in our research, that's what we saw most common. It is certainly under your purview to recommend that they either be stricken or it be modified in some fashion. Absolutely, council's purview of how that would be handled.
I'd like to see it modified.
Well, yeah, and I hope that when it's taken back to planning commission, that you can pull some of the examples of what they're talking about here, and maybe go back to a lot of the feedback that we had from the community to say, hey, I don't want to see this, but yet we don't have anything, and maybe that's what this should be addressing, and not necessarily these examples that. And
I think we need to verify those examples too, because I don't know that the example you just mentioned exceeds the height of the house.
Greg Hollow's house?
Yeah.
He's a single story.
He's got a high roof line.
Yeah,
He's got an attic, but I guarantee you that
It's got a full upstairs.
And it may be beneficial.
The other one, I don't think exceeds the height of the house.
Which one?
So you can see. The one on the other street back behind him.
Well, I think where we are now,
I think it does.
we talked about it a long time ago. It was form-based zoning where we want things built in downtown to look like downtown. And I guess that's kind of the direction we all want to go. A 20-foot high metal building, as you alluded to, that doesn't generally fit any character of a neighborhood, an existing neighborhood. But if you, two-story brick structure that's garage or carport on one level and some sort of space on the second level, that may do it. And I guess I'd like to have some time to see how we might address some of these issues, instead of just saying, being hard and fast with it. I'm pretty sure I know the examples you're using, and I'm in total agreement. But I hate to knock somebody else out that wants to do a good project. You hate this, one of these things, you hate to punish the good because of the actions of a few. Yeah.
And the best example is over in Arlington. I think Jed Wall first lived in this house. It's got a really nice garage apartment in the backyard. Nobody else on that street does, but it looks good.
Mm-hmm. And I've been in an addition at the corner of Pine and Arlington, and it's the same way. the architecture in the neighborhood, you're looking at a lot of the single-level homes, and so they just had they had limited space, and so they had to go behind the house and then add a two-car garage, and then they made a real nice space over the garage. And yeah, it is taller, and I get that, but it's well built, and
It blends.
yeah, it's not an eyesore. So yeah, I do think we do have to be really careful with this. And
Looks like I didn't make the original motion.
Councilman Griffin.
Griffin? Yeah, the second was,
I did, I think two of us seconded.
Mr. Griffin, would you like to withdraw your motion?
Yeah, I withdraw.
No, withdrawal of the motion, do I hear a second? Then
Second.
Withdrawal of the second, hold this matter over. I'll entertain a motion, then we hold the matter over.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
We'll need a little more clarification of holdover. I mean, are we sending it back to the planning commission, or are you asking staff to offer some proposals? Is it going to come back to the full council to offer proposals?
Yeah, I'd like that council be able to possibly provide some locations to staff of construction that we think would be prohibited by this, but are in have the same characteristics of the surrounding homes.
It's like what Riley says, that it blends, because the other house blends in well with the neighborhood.
And we will proceed in that fashion, no problems whatsoever. My caution is that is really hard to legislate, because what you may look at and say, that is fine, the neighbor next door may say, absolutely not, that is not fine. I mean, and so when we come back with something, we certainly need it to have parameters of what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, or what should be submitted for review, possibly by special exception or whatever, to the Board of Zoning Appeals, or would I get the Planning Commission? I can't remember. Zoning Board of Appeals.
It would go to Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
are many ways to address this. You may
Right.
have some additional setbacks for additional feet in height.
Sure.
Looking at a variety of things, and we can
Yeah.
certainly bring back some
And
visual.
so that's what we would want to make sure, is that if we're wanting another set of eyes on something other than what is legislated, then how do we write that so that can happen? My concern in the very beginning is where I stepped aside with Kelly, is I wanted us to be very careful that if we write an ordinance that says something is prohibited, that it's prohibited. And I think that's really where you're coming from. So we want to make sure, if there needs to be some additional review, how do we get that done? So holding it over, we are glad to do that. We would ask that you communicate with staff, help us understand what you're looking for. If we believe that we understand the general direction what you're asking of, I think it would be appropriate that it would go back to the Planning Commission with those alterations. Or that we bring it to council, we hold this over, we bring it back for first reading. You then would be in a position of, if you override what they presented, you're just going to have that 2/3 vote to do that. And so there's a couple of ways to approach it. I just want us to all be clear of how we would do that.
Okay. I don't think any of us are eager to get into defining aesthetics, so we will make recommendations to you of things that we like and don't like, but we'll lean on you to figure out how to legislate that. How about that?
Very well.
I've got one question. Sure. When there is a project proposed in our downtown area, what board or group approves the way that it looks, that it's in character with downtown?
Currently, if it's in the downtown overlay, not the historic overlay, so we have a larger area that's the downtown overlay, that's approved by staff if they meet all the recommendations. If they are short on something or needing to discuss context, it goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals, as that's part of the zoning ordinance. If it is in the historic district, which is, your very smaller defined area of trade, a little bit out from there, that would go to the Board of Architectural Review. And there's certainly parameters for discussion to expand their duties, powers, jurisdiction area, where it would be done by a very specific set of trained professionals, not necessarily just on that street. And we can certainly consider that.
I mean, ideally, this would be tackled by a homeowners association. They'd have specific things that they're looking for and don't want to see, but it's very important to a lot of the neighborhoods in my district where those have expired, and then people just say, hey, I just think this is in character of the neighborhood, and they move these things in, and people start calling, and there's absolutely nothing we can do. So I really appreciate your work on this, and I think we'll find something that everybody can agree on soon.
It's complicated.
It is. But we'll get there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes, that's the whole.
Motion to hold over.
Yes.
Motion to hold over. Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Thank y'all. Council, the next item before us this evening is the first reading of ordinance number 11-2019. You will see as one of the matters for consideration in executive session pertains to this ordinance. I believe that we will hold this matter over until we have gathered additional information in executive session, if I am not mistaken. Correct? Yes, sir. With that, then, we will entertain a motion to go into executive session for matters considered, and we'll address those.
Second.
We'll need to have those stated, please.
Let me make a motion here, Mr. Mayor, if I can. I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss an economic development matter pertaining to Project Maple as allowed by state statute, section 30-4-70A5.
Comes as a motion. Do I hear a second? Second. Have a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss an economic development matter pertaining to Project Hot Stove as allowed by state statute, section 30-4-70A5.
Comes as a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss a contractual matter pertaining to senior action as allowed by state statute, section 30-470A2.
Comes as a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, we stand in executive session. Council, in executive session, we've considered three matters. One an economic development matter related to Project Maple, one an economic development matter related to a project named Hot Stove, and a third, which was a contractual matter in regards to senior action. We've taken no action in executive session. I entertain a motion that we come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, we have one item of new business that we need to consider this evening before we conclude the meeting. It's the first reading of ordinance number 11-2019. Do I hear a motion in that regard? Yeah.
You want to hold it over?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we hold over ordinance number 11-2019.
For the purpose of gathering more information in this regard?
Yes, sir. For the purpose of gathering more information in this regard.
I have a motion. To hear a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, we stand adjourned.